On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a massive coordinated air campaign against Iran called Operation Epic Fury. Hundreds of aircraft struck targets across the country. Iranian ballistic missile sites, military infrastructure, and command facilities were hit simultaneously. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers flew from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri and dropped 2,000-pound precision-guided bombs on Iranian ballistic missile sites. 3 American service members were killed. It was the largest American military operation in the Middle East in a generation. It was also the second time in less than 9 months that the B-2 had flown into Iranian airspace. The first time was June 22, 2025. That mission, Operation Midnight Hammer, had dropped 14 of the largest conventional bombs ever built onto Iranian nuclear facilities buried inside mountains. No Iranian radar had tracked the aircraft. No Iranian missile had been fired at them. They were simply invisible. This is the story of how that aircraft came to exist, how it was designed, built, tested, and ultimately sent to war more times than most people realize, and why, more than 30 years after it first flew, the B-2 Spirit remains the most consequential military aircraft on Earth. To understand the B-2, you have to understand the problem it was designed to solve. By the mid-1970s, the Soviet Union had built the most sophisticated air defense network in human history. Radar stations, surface-to-air missile batteries, interceptor aircraft, and integrated command systems stretched across the entire Soviet landmass. American military planners ran wargame after wargame and arrived at an uncomfortable conclusion. If nuclear war came, the existing fleet of B-52 bombers, which had been the backbone of American strategic air power since the 1950s, would be shot down long before reaching their targets. The Soviet air defense system was simply too dense, too layered, and too capable. The solution was straightforward in theory: build an aircraft that radar cannot see. Stealth technology had been developing quietly in American research labs since the mid-1960s. Northrop Corporation, working out of a classified facility in Rancho Palos Verdes, California, had been studying radar evasion alongside Grumman for years. Their focus was the flying wing design, a configuration with no fuselage and no tail, essentially a giant airborne wing. This shape had long been recognized as having an unusually small radar cross-section. Radar beams, rather than bouncing back to a receiver, would glance off the smooth, curved surfaces and scatter in other directions. The man who first imagined this design as a serious military aircraft was Jack Northrop. As far back as 1929, Northrop had been building flying wing prototypes in his garage. His XB-35 and YB-49 designs from the 1940s were essentially early blueprints for what would become the B-2, though they never entered production. When Northrop was finally shown a scale model of the B-2 in April 1980, he was 84 years old and in poor health. He reportedly said, "Now I know why God has kept me alive for the past 25 years." He died the following February, just months before his life's work was formally selected as America's next great bomber. The formal story of the B-2 begins with President Jimmy Carter and a decision he made in 1977 that shaped American air power for the next 50 years. Carter had been briefed on stealth technology and was deeply impressed by its potential. He was also skeptical of the B-1A, a high-speed supersonic bomber the Air Force wanted as a B-52 replacement. Carter saw the B-1A as expensive and potentially obsolete if stealth could deliver a genuinely undetectable aircraft. In 1977, he canceled the B-1A program and quietly authorized development of what the Air Force called the Advanced Technology Bomber. The program was classified at the highest levels. Almost nobody outside a small circle in the Pentagon and the White House knew it existed. DARPA had already been running a classified program called the Experimental Survivability Testbed since the summer of 1975. Northrop and Lockheed both received contracts in the first round. Lockheed ultimately won the follow-on contract that led to the F-117 stealth attack aircraft. But Northrop had also been developing its own classified technology demonstrator called the Tacit Blue, a strange-looking aircraft that tested stealth technology, fly-by-wire controls, curved composite surfaces, and electronic intelligence gathering. The lessons from Tacit Blue flowed directly into the B-2. By September 1980, the Air Force had formally issued a request for proposals for the Advanced Technology Bomber. Two teams competed. Northrop partnered with Boeing, Hughes, and General Electric, with a proposal code named Senior Ice. Lockheed partnered with Rockwell, with a proposal code named Senior Peg. Both teams used flying wing designs. On October 20, 1981, the Air Force awarded Northrop a $7.3 billion contract to build the Advanced Technology Bomber. It was given the designation B-2 and the name Spirit. The entire program was classified at a level of secrecy the Air Force had not maintained since the Manhattan Project. Northrop built the aircraft at an old Ford Motor Company plant in Pico Rivera, California. All employees were sworn to secrecy and subjected to regular polygraph tests. Fake companies were used to purchase components so that no supplier would know what they were actually building. Designing a large strategic bomber with a minimal radar signature turned out to be extraordinarily difficult. Every edge, every seam, every surface that protrudes into the airflow is a potential radar reflector. The engines and their exhaust are particularly challenging, since jet engines are highly reflective and their heat signatures can be tracked by infrared sensors. The B-2 solved these problems through a combination of shape, materials, and engineering ingenuity that was genuinely unprecedented. The flying wing configuration eliminated the fuselage and tail, removing two of the largest radar reflectors on a conventional aircraft. The wing surfaces were designed using a technique called continuous curvature, where smooth, curved surfaces deflect radar beams away rather than bouncing them back. This approach was made possible by advances in computational fluid dynamics and computer modeling in the early 1980s. Without those computing advances, calculating the behavior of radar waves on surfaces as complex as the B-2's wing would have been literally impossible. The engines, four General Electric F-118 turbofan engines, are buried deep inside the wing to shield them from radar. Their exhaust nozzles are designed to mix hot exhaust gases with cool air before they exit the aircraft, reducing the heat signature that infrared sensors can detect. The aircraft carries a special apparatus that alerts the crew if they are leaving a contrail, allowing them to change altitude and stop dragging a visible vapor trail across the sky. The radar-absorbing coating applied to the B-2's surface is a proprietary composite material that absorbs, rather than reflects, radar energy. Maintaining this coating is one of the most expensive and time-consuming aspects of keeping the aircraft operational. Any damage requires careful repair to maintain stealth performance. The wing itself is a lambda wing design, sometimes described as a boomerang shape, with a distinctive double W notch cut into the rear trailing edge. This serrated trailing edge is a critical stealth feature. By ensuring all the edges of the aircraft align along just a few specific angles, radar reflections are controlled and directed away from ground-based receivers. The landing gear doors, bomb bay doors, and access panels all align along these same carefully calculated angles. At 69 feet long and 17 feet tall, the B-2 is shorter than many fighter jets. But its wingspan is 172 feet, nearly the same as a Boeing 757 airliner. It weighs 160,000 pounds fully loaded and is powered by those four turbofan engines to a top speed of just over 600 miles per hour. It is subsonic by design. There are no afterburners, because afterburners create enormous heat signatures. Its unrefueled range is 6,000 nautical miles. With aerial refueling, its range is essentially unlimited. The cockpit holds a crew of two, a pilot and a mission commander. For very long missions, the aircraft is equipped with a modest crew rest area. Because missions lasting 30, 40, or even 70 hours are not hypothetical, They are routine. In the mid-1980s, the Air Force changed the B-2's mission profile, and it cost the program dearly. The original design called for the B-2 to be a high-altitude penetrator. But by the mid-80s, the Air Force had become concerned that advancing Soviet radar technology might eventually detect even a stealth aircraft at high altitude. The solution was to add low-altitude terrain following capability. Flying at low altitude subjects an aircraft to far greater aerodynamic stress than high-altitude flight, and the modifications required approximately $1 billion in additional development costs and pushed the first flight back by approximately 2 years. By 1989, an estimated $23 billion had been spent on the B-2 program in secret, without most of Congress or the public knowing the program existed. On November 22, 1988, the B-2 was rolled out of its hangar at Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. The rollout was public, but the crowd was kept 70 yards away. Photographers were restricted to positions showing only the front of the aircraft. The rear of the wing, where classified features were located, remained hidden. The aircraft that emerged from that hangar was immediately unlike anything the public had seen. The boomerang shape, the seamless curved surfaces. No tail, no fuselage, nothing that looked like a conventional aircraft. At the time of rollout, the estimated unit cost was $515 million per aircraft, making it the most expensive plane ever built. The first flight came on July 17, 1989, when Air Vehicle 1 flew from Palmdale to Edwards Air Force Base in California. The test flight lasted 2 hours and 16 minutes. The test pilots reported it flew smoothly, handling, in the words of one pilot, like an F-111 with 4 fuel tanks. But by the time the B-2 first flew, the world had changed. The original plan called for the Air Force to purchase 165 advanced technology bombers. That number was cut to 132. And then, in December 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved. The primary mission the B-2 had been designed for no longer existed. In his 1992 State of the Union address, President George H.W. Bush announced that B-2 production would be limited to 20 aircraft. In 1996, the Clinton administration authorized the conversion of a 21st aircraft, a prototype test model, to full operational standard. That brought the total fleet to 21 aircraft. The total program cost, including development, engineering, testing, production, procurement, spare parts, equipment, retrofitting, and software support, averaged $2.13 billion per aircraft in 1996 dollars. The 21 B-2s were each given individual names: Spirit of, followed by an American state or city; Spirit of Missouri; Spirit of California; Spirit of Georgia; Spirit of America. Each was assigned to the 509th Bomb Wing at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, the only operational base from which the B-2 would ever fly. The first B-2 entered operational service on December 17, 1993. Through the 1990s, the aircraft went through a series of capability upgrades, eventually reaching the Block 30 configuration. Block 30 added the ability to carry and deliver the full suite of conventional precision-guided munitions, transforming the B-2 from a purely nuclear weapon delivery system into a dual-purpose bomber capable of delivering precision strikes against any target, anywhere on Earth, in any weather, at any time. The aircraft received the AN/APQ-181 radar system, a sophisticated Ku-band radar with electronically steered antennas built into the leading edges of both wings. This radar gave the B-2 the ability to create high-resolution synthetic aperture radar maps of targets through clouds and darkness, enabling precision delivery regardless of conditions. Maintenance proved to be extraordinarily demanding. The radar-absorbing coating is sensitive and requires constant attention. Any damage from birds, rain, hail, or ground handling equipment requires careful repair using specialized materials applied in precise layers. The B-2 requires climate-controlled hangars because exposure to extreme temperatures and moisture can degrade the stealth coatings. There is only one facility in the world capable of performing major depot-level maintenance on the B-2 at Whiteman Air Force Base. The Air Force declared initial operational capability in April 1997. Full operational capability did not come until December 2003, after the aircraft had already been to war. On March 23, 1999, at approximately 10:30 at night, two B-2 Spirit stealth bombers lifted off from Whiteman Air Force Base. Their destination was the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, more than 6,000 miles away. Their mission was to strike Serbian military targets in Kosovo and Serbia as part of Operation Allied Force, the NATO air campaign to stop the ethnic cleansing of Albanians by Serbian forces. For the first time in history, a stealth bomber would fly a combat mission and deliver weapons in anger. The two aircraft flew non-stop across the Atlantic, dropped their bombs, and flew non-stop back to Missouri. Each round-trip mission took approximately 30 to 31 hours. During the entire 78-day Kosovo air campaign, 6 B-2s flew a total of 50 sorties out of approximately 34,000 total NATO sorties. Less than 0.1% of all missions. Yet those 50 sorties delivered 11% of all bombs dropped during the conflict. In the first 8 weeks, the B-2 was responsible for destroying 33% of all Serbian targets. The aircraft dropped 500 bombs in Yugoslavia throughout the campaign. The B-2 was the first aircraft in history to use GPS satellite-guided Joint Direct Attack Munition bombs known as JDAMs in combat. The JDAMs allowed precision strikes regardless of weather. Serbia's often stormy skies had made accurate bombing difficult for many aircraft. The B-2, using its radar and JDAM guidance, was unaffected by clouds, rain, or darkness. One tragic moment stands out. On May 7, 1999, a B-2 dropped 5 JDAM bombs on what targeting intelligence identified as a military facility. The bombs hit the Chinese embassy in Belgrade, killing 3 people and injuring 20 others. The strike was the result of an error in the targeting database, where an outdated map had failed to account for the embassy's location. It caused a severe diplomatic crisis between the United States and China that took months to resolve. Despite that tragedy, the Kosovo campaign validated the B-2's combat concept completely. An aircraft that flew less than 1% of missions destroyed a third of the targets. On October 7, 2001, 26 days after the September 11 terrorist attacks, the United States launched Operation Enduring Freedom against Taliban and al-Qaeda targets in Afghanistan. The B-2 was there from the very first night. Afghanistan presented a unique challenge. Landlocked, remote, and far from any American airbase, the distances involved were enormous. To reach Afghanistan from Missouri, a B-2 had to fly west across the Pacific, refuel over California, refuel again over Hawaii, refuel over Guam, continue across the Pacific and Indian Oceans, and then enter Afghan airspace. The round trips took approximately 44 hours, making the Afghanistan missions the longest combat bombing missions in aviation history at that time. During Operation Enduring Freedom, the B-2 flew 6 missions in the first 3 days of the war. Each sortie took approximately 70 hours, including the flight to Afghanistan, a crew change at Diego Garcia, and the flight back to Whiteman. Crews used data links to receive updated targeting information from ground forces while in flight, changing targets in real time across thousands of miles. This ability to be retasked mid-mission became standard practice. The B-2 fleet's availability during this period revealed a significant operational challenge. Only 55% of the 21 B-2s were mission-capable when the bombing began on October 7, 2001. By November, the mission-capable rate had fallen to 49%. Much of the maintenance time was devoted to repairing the radar-absorbing coating. The Air Force's goal was 60%. They were not meeting it. In March 2003, when the United States launched Operation Iraqi Freedom to topple Saddam Hussein, the B-2 again flew on the first night. During the Iraq campaign, B-2s operated from Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean and from Whiteman Air Force Base. Flying from Diego Garcia significantly reduced mission duration. The B-2s flew a total of 49 sorties during Operation Iraqi Freedom, releasing over 1.5 million pounds of munitions and striking approximately 600 targets. Those targets ranged from Iraqi air defense sites to command and control facilities to Republican Guard Army divisions positioned near Baghdad. The B-2 struck in the first wave before air defenses had been suppressed because it did not need those defenses to be suppressed. It simply flew past them unseen. The Air Force declared the B-2 at full operational capability in December 2003, even though it had already fought in 3 wars and flown over 2,000 combat hours. In March 2011, as Muammar Gaddafi's forces moved to crush an uprising against his government, the United Nations Security Council authorized a no-fly zone over Libya and the use of military force to protect civilians. On March 18, 2011, 3 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base for the first night of Operation Odyssey Dawn. Their mission was to destroy Gaddafi's air force on the ground, eliminating his ability to challenge the no-fly zone before it had even been declared. The 3 aircraft flew 12 hours across the Atlantic to reach the Libyan border. Their targets were 45 hardened aircraft shelters at a dual military and civilian airfield at Sirte, Gaddafi's hometown. 2 of the 3 B-2s bombed successfully. The third experienced a mechanical problem and could not complete its attack. After dropping their weapons, the aircraft flew 12 hours back to Missouri. The mission lasted approximately 30 hours round trip and required support from 15 aerial refueling tankers positioned across the Atlantic. The Libya mission illustrated a fundamental aspect of the B-2's strategic value. Gaddafi's air defenses were old Soviet-era surface-to-air missile systems, but they were still lethal enough to threaten conventional aircraft. The B-2 went in on night 1 and eliminated the threat before anyone else had to face it. In February 2008, the B-2 fleet suffered its most serious loss. On February 23, a B-2 crashed shortly after taking off from Andersen Air Force Base in Guam. Both pilots safely ejected before the aircraft hit the ground. The aircraft, Spirit of Kansas, was destroyed. The cause was moisture that had infiltrated the aircraft's air data sensors during pre-flight, corrupting the flight control computers with inaccurate data. The computers fed incorrect information to the flight control system, causing the aircraft to pitch up sharply immediately after takeoff. The pilots could not recover. It was the most expensive aircraft loss in aviation history. The fleet was now down to 20 aircraft. A second B-2, Spirit of Georgia, suffered severe damage in a fire in 2022 at Whiteman Air Force Base, when a malfunction in the aircraft's environmental control system caused a fire in the forward equipment bay. The damage was so extensive that the Air Force ultimately retired it, rather than undertaking a multi-year, multi-hundred million dollar repair. The fleet was now 19 aircraft. 19 stealth bombers, each one representing a level of engineering sophistication that remains unmatched anywhere in the world. In January 2017, the Islamic State had established a significant presence in Libya, following the chaos that engulfed the country after the fall of Gaddafi. An Islamic State training camp had been established approximately 19 miles southwest of Sirte, and intelligence indicated a large number of fighters were present. On January 18, 2017, 2 B-2 Spirit bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base on a 30-hour round-trip mission to Libya. Together, the 2 aircraft dropped 108 500-pound precision-guided JDAM bombs on 2 Islamic State training camps. United States Africa Command confirmed that more than 80 Islamic State militants were killed. No civilian casualties were reported. The mission demonstrated that the B-2's utility had expanded far beyond its original Cold War nuclear mission. It was now a precision conventional strike platform capable of reaching targets anywhere on Earth from the continental United States, staying aloft for 30 or more hours, and delivering devastating firepower with surgical precision. In October 2024, B-2s struck underground Houthi weapons storage facilities in Yemen, the same mission we described in detail in our previous video. Those strikes staged through Australia and served as a direct warning to Iran about American capability against hardened underground targets. Then, in spring 2025, the B-2 returned to Yemen for Operation Rough Rider, a sustained campaign against Houthi missile and drone infrastructure. B-2s flew multiple sorties from Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, dropping precision-guided munitions on Houthi ballistic missile storage sites, launch facilities, and command infrastructure. The campaign represented the most sustained use of B-2 stealth bombers in a single theater since the early days of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan in 2001. Through the spring of 2025, diplomatic tensions between the United States, Israel, and Iran had escalated sharply. Iran had accelerated its uranium enrichment program to levels approaching weapons grade. The International Atomic Energy Agency reported in May 2025 that Iran had stockpiled enough uranium enriched to 60% purity to construct multiple nuclear weapons if further enriched. The agency voted to censure Iran on June 12. Iran responded by announcing it would create a new secret uranium enrichment facility at an unknown location. Israeli strikes against Iran began on June 13, 2025. Targeting military infrastructure and steadily degrading Iran's air defense systems over more than a week of sustained attacks. By June 21, after days of Israeli strikes had weakened Iran's defenses, President Donald Trump gave the order. 13 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. 6 were sent west toward the Pacific, toward Guam, as decoys, designed to create the appearance of B-2 activity in the Pacific, while the real strike package headed east. The 7 aircraft with combat missions flew east, crossing the Atlantic Ocean, refueling 3 times from prepositioned KC-135 and KC-46A Pegasus tankers, crossing the Mediterranean, and linking up with fighter escorts once over land in the Middle East. The fighters launched approximately 30 suppression weapons against Iranian surface-to-air missile systems as the B-2s approached their targets. Not a single Iranian radar system tracked the B-2s. Not a single Iranian fighter intercepted them. Not a single shot was fired at the strike package. Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see them. At 6:40 in the evening Eastern Time, the equivalent of 2:10 in the morning Tehran time, 6 B-2s began attacking the Fordow uranium enrichment plant, dropping 12 massive ordnance penetrators on the facility's 2 main ventilation shafts. The first bombs blew off the concrete covers to expose the shafts. The next 4 penetrated deep into the facility. The 6th on each shaft was a flex weapon in case of a weapons failure. A 7th B-2 dropped 2 more massive ordnance penetrators on the Natanz nuclear complex. Simultaneously, a United States submarine in the region launched more than 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles against the 3rd nuclear facility at Isfahan, striking key surface infrastructure. The GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, each one weighing 30,000 pounds, is the most powerful conventional bomb ever used in combat. It can penetrate through 60 meters of reinforced concrete before detonating. Only one aircraft in the world is capable of carrying it, the B-2 Spirit. Operation Midnight Hammer was its first operational use in history. In total, the operation dropped 14 massive ordnance penetrators and fired more than 30 Tomahawk missiles. Over 125 aircraft in total participated, including the B-2s, decoy bombers, fighter escorts, tankers, and surveillance and reconnaissance aircraft. The 14 airmen in the cockpits of those 7 B-2s were drawn from the active duty Air Force and the Missouri Air National Guard, ranging in rank from captain to colonel. The entire strike package entered Iranian airspace executed its mission, and exited. No American aircraft were lost. No American crew members were injured. General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stood at the Pentagon podium the following morning and said the words that cut to the heart of what the B-2 represents: "No other military in the world could have done this." One crew member, in a video called to Kane after the mission, said it felt like the Super Bowl, the thousands of scientists, airmen, and maintainers all coming together. The mission lasted approximately 36 hours from takeoff to landing. When the 7 B-2s landed back at Whiteman Air Force Base, they had covered more than 7,000 miles. Satellite imagery released by Maxar Technologies showed large-diameter craters along the top of the ridge over the Fordow underground complex. Several tunnel entrances into the facility had been blocked with dirt following the strikes. The ridgeline near where the bombs entered appeared to have been physically altered. Questions arose in the days following the strikes about how thoroughly Fordow had been destroyed. A Defense Intelligence Agency assessment issued with low confidence suggested the attack might have only set Iran's nuclear program back by months. President Trump called the strikes a spectacular military success. General Kane declined to offer a specific battle damage assessment, but pointed to satellite imagery as evidence of the strike's impact. Iranian officials said the facilities had been damaged, but that Iran's nuclear program would continue. A ceasefire between Iran and Israel took effect on June 24, 2025, 2 days after the American strikes. In the months following Operation Midnight Hammer, the United States pursued negotiations with Iran over a new nuclear deal. Talks were held in Oman and Turkey through early 2026. By late February 2026, those talks had stalled. President Trump warned publicly that any future strike would make Midnight Hammer look like nothing. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. Trump called it major combat operations and justified the attacks as necessary to eliminate imminent threats from the Iranian regime. The B-2s flew again from Whiteman Air Force Base, this time dropping 2,000-pound precision-guided bombs on Iranian ballistic missile sites. 4 B-2s took part in the mission. The operation also involved hundreds of Israeli aircraft, American carrier-based aircraft, and Tomahawk cruise missiles striking targets across Iran, including the residence of the Iranian president and the headquarters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It was the second time in less than 9 months that the B-2 had flown into Iranian airspace. 3 American service members were killed during the operation, the first American combat casualties in the Iran campaign. Iran responded with missile attacks against American bases across the Middle East, striking naval support activity Bahrain, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait, and Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates. As of the recording of this video, Operation Epic Fury remains ongoing. The B-2 Spirit will eventually be replaced. The Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider, a next-generation stealth bomber that first flew in November 2023, is designed to incorporate all the lessons learned from more than 3 decades of B-2 operations. The B-21 will be smaller, cheaper to build, cheaper to maintain, and designed from the start with modular upgradable systems. The Air Force intends to purchase at least 100 B-21s at a fraction of the B-2's cost per aircraft. The B-2 fleet is currently scheduled to be retired by 2032, when the B-21 is expected to be fully operational. By then, each of the surviving 19 B-2 Spirit bombers will have spent approximately 40 years in service. They will have flown through the final years of the Cold War, through the ethnic cleansing of Kosovo, through the mountains of Afghanistan on the longest bombing missions in history, through the air defenses of Iraq, through the chaos of Libya, through the underground weapons bunkers of Yemen, and into Iranian airspace twice, in missions that define the limits of what any military on Earth can accomplish. In more than 26 years of combat operations across 8 different conflicts, no B-2 was ever shot down in combat. It was never even fired upon by an enemy that knew it was there. Its radar cross-section, roughly equivalent to that of a large metal sphere or a small bird, kept it invisible to every air defense system it ever faced. The fundamental promise made in those classified research labs in the 1970s and traced back to Jack Northrop's flying wing designs of the 1920s was fully delivered. Build an aircraft that radar cannot see, and the battlefield changes fundamentally. You can reach any target, anywhere on Earth, at any time, from the heart of America. You can destroy things that were thought to be indestructible. You can send a message that no other nation on Earth is equipped to send. The B-2 Spirit was not just an aircraft. It was a demonstration of what becomes possible when a nation commits its best engineers, its most closely guarded secrets, and its deepest resources to a single technological idea and refuses to let it fail. 19 remain in service today. The missions are still coming. Thanks for watching. If you want to go deeper on the B-21 Raider, the future of stealth technology, or the full history of other legendary American military aircraft, those videos are on the way. Subscribe so you don't miss them. See you next time.